Salla represents Neste, and she is going to talk to us about Neste's transformation for a sustainable future. So, Salla, I hope you can hear us and we can hear you, and the floor is yours for 10 minutes. And then just a couple of questions from our audience. I encourage once again our audience is to send in the questions and vote on the questions to our speakers. And I'm not sure we're going to have time to cover many questions, but maybe one, the most popular question from the audience. All right, Salla, the floor is yours. 10 minutes, please.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I hope we can also set up the slides that I prepared for this event. I'm actually really quite inspired by what I've already heard today. I absolutely think that the Nordics and the Baltics can lead in many sustainability related issues. So I'm really happy to be here. Also talking a little bit about Neste's transformation and also maybe why we've embarked on this transformation. So those of you who know Neste, you probably think of an oil company, but I just like to highlight that today Neste is so much more. And last year, 2020, actually 94% of Neste's operating profit came from the renewable businesses. And also here, it's just not about the renewable road transportation, but increasingly also about renewable aviation, as well as the renewable polymers and chemicals. And this, for me at least, is very, very exciting. So the story of Neste started in 1948. And the purpose of the company at that point was to secure Finland's oil supply. And this is a very important role, obviously, for a company. But today that sounds slightly maybe unexciting. So actually already for many, many years, Neste has been really investing into R&D and innovation. You wouldn't expect from a company like Neste, but 25% of our people are working with R&D, innovation and engineering. And this has been the case for a long time already. And already in 1996, actually, very clever women filed a patent how to make diesel out of renewables. And the world was not ready for that kind of innovation at that point. So that was put aside and left waiting for a few years. Then in the mid of 2000s, if you remember, there was this previous big discussion on climate. If you remember, there was this big meeting on climate in Copenhagen, and everybody was expecting big changes, but that didn't amount to anything much at that point. However, that amounted into something really big within Neste. So Neste embarked on a big transformation and decided actually to start investing into these renewable diesel refineries. And this was something that was decided when nobody was asking for it. Nobody knew about this product. There was no market demand. There was no legislation, nothing to support it. So started to build refineries in Finland, but also in Rotterdam and in Singapore. And then now, as I said, 94% of the profit come from that decision taken quite some time ago already. This is not the end of the transformation for Neste. So we're now also looking at moving towards renewable polymers and chemicals. We have made a commitment to recycle 1 million ton of waste plastics per year, starting 2030. We are moving towards becoming carbon neutral in our production by 2035, and we're providing solutions to help our customers reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 20 million tons annually by 2030. So this is something that desperately is needed, and it definitely still continues. And the transformation is maybe most pointedly seen in our purpose today, creating a healthier planet for our children. And this is something that is a far cry from this, securing Finland's oil supply, but this is also something that every single employee, I think, can recite in their sleep. This is also the answer that our CEO gave me when I asked him when he was interviewing me for the job on why he had joined Neste. And he said it was the purpose. So I felt this is a CEO that I can actually work with. So no company can make the transformation on their own. So it's really, really important that we understand what are the different stakeholders that we need to learn to work with. Who are the ones that we need in our ecosystems? How do we build the kind of trust that we can actually work together with the public sector, with the policymakers, with the NGOs, with the customers, with the suppliers. And we actually feel that companies have a crucial role in building these ecosystems, because we can also find a way of engaging with different types of stakeholders. I just wanted to highlight that, when talking about sustainability, people often understand it in very different ways. So a useful framework for sustainability, we believe, is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we've actually made a big study within Neste to really show where we can make the biggest impact. So all the 17 different goals are super important, but when looking at what we do and where we operate, these 6 are the most relevant for us. My absolute favorite one is SDG 17, so partnerships for the goals. I think it's so important that if we're trying to change the world, that we understand that we need to find the right partners to do that with. So why are we still on this journey? The world has actually changed a lot. I started by saying that, when we decided to start building these renewable diesel refineries, nobody was expecting that. But if you look at what the world talks about today, it's all about climate. It's all about sustainability. So there is much more consumer pressure, and there's much more companies that are finding this as a profitable growth path for them. So finding sustainable offering. Trying to solve a problem for somebody else is normally a good area to do business, and definitely more sustainable solutions are extremely well received by many different actors. Climate is actually also becoming a key investment factor. I joke nowadays that my best friend is our head of investor relations, because we talk with investors all the time. They all want to talk about climate. So this is something that has changed tremendously. And just a few examples, it's not only that, money is going more into sustainability or climate solutions, but also where money definitely is not going anymore. So big investors also already pulling out of companies that are not seen to be taking climate issues seriously. Also, when looking at what the world has been looking like the past year, many people thought that the pandemic will change it all. No, it hasn't. Climate is still on top of the agenda. If you look at carbon pricing, last year, 20 euros was the price for ETS. And then people were saying that it might be in 40 euros in 5 years' time. It's already above 40. So things really have started changing. And we've seen a lot of activities taken by different countries, different governments, on how do we make sure that we are aligned with the Paris Agreement targets. And this is where we also felt that we need to have a target that is aligned with the Paris Agreement. And this is why we've been looking at the science, we've been looking at what we need to do to make sure that we are pulling our weight. And this is why we have our 2 climate commitments. So one is to reach carbon neutral production by 2035. And if you're thinking about, we are still also in oil refining, this is a massive project that we have started working on. And then also growing our ability to help our customers reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by using our solutions. So we were at 10 million tons last year, so we're hoping to double that by 2030. So what we're doing, this is not something that the sustainability team is working on its own. So we have an actual strategic priority that are those 2 climate commitments that I just showed you. So this means that I'm reporting back to our executive committee on a monthly basis to show how we've made progress. This is something where we have been saying a lot that we also need to change the business environment so that it is making it feasible for these kinds of changes. We need to make big investments as well. And we actually needed to change our own investment criteria. So now when we take something to the investment committee, we need to show that impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So we also needed to look at why haven't these initiatives been moving forward before? Well, we needed to have a higher price internally for carbon so that helps some of those initiatives move forward. We put all these different ideas on a timeline so that we understand what can we do today and what do we need to start building on today so that we can scale them up by 2030, 2035. So also piloting some technologies that are not maybe mature enough or are not economically viable yet. but we need to start building on that so that we will be able to use them in a few years' time. And then, like I said before, nobody has all the wisdom in their own heads. So we need to also work together with other organizations who can build on the understanding that we already have. So we actually are working together with a lot of different universities, research institutes. We have about 25, I think, partnerships with different universities so that we have, the best knowledge available. Also looking at smaller companies who may have expertise in some of these topics. So we partner with them as well. We're looking at scaling up some of the solutions that are already out there, like looking at investing into wind power systems. We have some exciting ways of building new ecosystems. For example, with the city of Oakland, we're collecting the waste cooking oil from their restaurants, we're turning it into renewable diesel, then they were then using in their fleet. So the waste from the city becomes their fuel, and I think this is quite cool. And a similar example we've done with McDonald's in the Netherlands, where something that has been used to fry their fries is now fueling their fleet. And then as we also have the sustainable aviation fuel, we've also decided that we now use sustainable aviation fuel for our own corporate travel. So we needed to partner with Finnair so that they are using that fuel when we are flying. Hopefully one day again. We made this commitment on the 12th of March last year, which was, by the way, the same day that we stopped flying. So it's been a bit of a funny year for that kind of a commitment. Just a few examples of the companies that we've been working with also in the Baltic countries. So this is definitely something that we are happy to work with in different regions. And also wanted to show that, this started very small. We had a couple of places in Finland where you could buy the renewable diesel. Now it's available in many, many other stations, 120 stations in Finland and in all the Baltics. Not many, hopefully growing, but still available. And I think this is actually something that I was so inspired by the Prime Minister as well as the Commission, both mentioning that we need big changes. And I think this is definitely what we need to think about. If we continue as we have done, then, we're heading towards breakdown. But what we need to be heading towards is breakthrough. And I was so somehow thinking that if the Baltic countries have been able to build back better, seriously, you are the ones who know how to do it, how to change the economy. Let's not forget that innovative past that you have. So how do you take very little and turn that into everything that you need? And I think this is exactly a good building block for a circular economy, for a more green society. So this is maybe all I wanted to say. Slightly over time, apologies. I speak really, really fast, but I had really, really a lot to say. So I think this is something that we really need to all remember. We need to be both faster and bolder, and we definitely need to do all of these things together. So thank you.
Salla, amazing. Thank you very much for sharing this story. As I said, we cannot really cover all of the questions. We're under a bit of a time pressure here, but nevertheless, there's quite a lot of interest in the practicalities of renewable diesel. If you could cover that two questions on another platform here coming in. I think this concerns the practicalities, I suppose. Basically, how to what it requires to make it feasible from a business perspective to introduce an innovation like this and to make it work. So in this case about the renewable diesel, so when did it become profitable as a project, and what was the greatest challenge connected to that? Was the technological development part the bigger challenge, or actually breaking into the market and persuading people to actually buy that stuff? Was that the more challenging part? Or, as you said, I mean, so the society has already changed, and it is actually very, very open to accepting these kinds of new products, at least in Finland, at least in the Nordics. Not sure about the Baltics yet, but we're on our way maybe there. So how would you, taking these questions together, a quick comment on that particular project?
Well, Well, the innovation took some time, or rather taking it into use. So the patent was filed in 1996, but the production started in 2007. So maybe there was also already one obstacle, so the mindset shift. But then when the production started and then expanded very quickly until 2011, I mentioned, Porvoo, Rotterdam, Singapore, but really that became profitable in 2013. So it didn't take that long anymore at that point. Definitely the more difficult thing was, making people understand what it is, because this is a completely new product. So it's not the old biodiesel. This is a renewable diesel, completely different technology. Nobody was asking for it. So, making people interested, but also making sure that there is market access. Because sometimes when you don't know what the product is, it can be difficult to bring that to the market. So there were legislative issues and marketing issues, but then when you have something that's relevant and that people understood the value for their own businesses or their own activities, then I think this was the critical thing, understanding what the world needs and being able to, provide that in an easy manner.
Salla, my final question, and I have the feeling that I'll sort of address this to each and every participant. I'm trying to sort of step into a Latvian entrepreneur's skeptical shoes and sort of and say, okay, it's Neste. I mean, they probably have $1 zillion in their bank accounts, right? And they're more able to fund any innovation that they want to go for. Is it really something that I can do? Can I be a part of this future, or I should sort of resist that future as long as I can? So what would your take on that be?
I would go back maybe not so much to how much money Neste has in its pocket, and it wasn't always so. I mean, now it is a very profitable business because we are in this renewable business, but if we would be only in the oil refining business, the story would be completely different. But maybe going back to some of the figures I showed you on where the investors' money is going. I think this is a matter of being able to explain how the solution that you're providing is fitting in their picture. And there is a tremendous interest in these sustainable solutions. We just issued a green bond. It was really, really well received. I think that's a good indication on how much interest there is in this type of new, more sustainable business offering.
Right. So I think we'll finish with that. I think the sort of one of the takeaways from what you also said is that you don't have to have $1 zillion on dollars in your bank account. You can, if you have a good project, the investors might be lining up to implement that. So thank you.
If I can add
sure.
more thing, I think it's very good to also look at all the innovation programs, all these things that the EU is also offering. I think there are plenty of opportunities. You just need to know where to look. So finding the money shouldn't be the obstacle. It's, finding the right people to back you up is maybe more relevant.
On that note, Salla, thank you very much for finding the time to join us. An inspiring talk, as I'm sure all of the rest of the case studies are also going to be.